Breaking news coming in of Donald Trump putting out this post saying that the United States of America has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. The operation was done in conjunction with the US law enforcement. Details to follow. There will be a news conference today at 11 a.m. at Mar-a-Lago. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Is what Donald Trump Jr. has. This is what Donald Trump has gone on to say. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, putting out that post. Vishal Vivek, my colleague, joining us. Vishal, after 7 strikes were heard at 2 a.m. local time in Venezuela, is Donald Trump taking responsibility for those strikes?
Yes, and this comes at a time when we've heard several explosions across Caracas, which is the capital of Venezuela. We've reported that at least 7 explosions have happened across the city and the southern part of the city in total darkness. Now we have the reason behind these explosions. Donald Trump himself has gone on social media and accepted that US has conducted these operations, and this doesn't really come as a surprise because the US had been expected to carry out these operations. The US was in direct touch with, there was a direct connection between both sides because the US had been threatening the Venezuelan side for months now that there will be some operation. We had seen glimpses of it in the recent past. About 7-8 days ago, there was a strike on the harbor of Venezuela. The territory of Venezuela had already been attacked. This is the attack in the heart of the capital, and the biggest military installation has also been attacked by the US side. What kind of damage has been done, that remains to be seen. Probably that will be explored when the news conference happens. That is expected around 10 p.m. in New Standard Time. Then we'll hear what exactly happens, and then we'll have more details. But these seem to be
leader of Venezuela, the president and his wife have been captured and they've been flown out of the country.
Yes, so that is what the US president has reportedly claimed. We'll have to wait for confirmation on some other level also, because since Venezuela has been, ruled over by the Maduro government for almost 12-13 years, he rules with an iron fist. Whether he's been rooted out so easily, that remains to be seen. But if the US president is claiming that, then that seems to be the case. That would be the biggest upheaval in South America in decades or so, because the US had been involved in many operations in the South American continent in the last in the last 4 or 5 decades. There have been many regime changes in which CIA had reportedly been involved. What kind of operations were undertaken to overthrow him, that all remains to be seen. What kind of damage has been done, all of those details are yet to be furnished.
Right, 7 different locations where explosions were heard at 2 o'clock in the dead of the night. And after those strikes, in fact, it is the leader of Venezuela who had claimed that this is, a strike by the United States, because Donald Trump has been threatening to do this for a while now.
Yes, that's exactly right. And we've seen this for the last few months, that there have been several levels of escalations. First off, it started with some troop deployment across the Caribbean. Caribbean is the region right next to Venezuela, where we've seen thousands of troops, at least 8,000 to 15,000 US troops were stationed. US had also mobilized its biggest warship, the USS Gerald Ford, near about the territory of Venezuela, threatening these operations. But the fact that the new year would start with these operations, with such big operation now, and now we've heard that the leader of Venezuela has been removed. So all of these operations will be carried out so fast. No expert would have guessed this. Many experts had suggested these escalations would happen, which would eventually lead to some sort of agreement between both the sides. But that doesn't seem to be the case. This seems to be a full-blown operation.
Vishal, the crux of the matter, according to the US president, is that he was leading this drug cartel in the country and that he was heading it.
Yes, that seems to be the main contentious point. He had been harping on the same tune for months, that the Venezuelan president himself is involved in the illicit drug trade that plagues the US side. This drug warfare has been going on for decades, for the last 40-50 years. Many countries in the Southern American continent, promote these illicit drug trade. Particularly the Colombian government has been involved in this for a while now. Venezuela is also a player, but it's not the biggest player in the Southern American continent. Many experts have solicited, and even the Venezuela government has solicited that the fact that the US is openly threatening, and now the US has already carried out these operations. The main reason behind it is the biggest oil reserve that Venezuela has in its arsenal. Venezuela has the
largest known reserves of oil on earth, of course, and complete denial by the president of Venezuela, saying that he has no involvement whatsoever in the narcotics trade. But this is basically an attempt to overthrow him, and that's what we are seeing. He's been captured now.
Yes, and that is exactly what I was talking about. That the US side has been arguing for months, for almost a year, that Venezuela is involved in drug operations. The president himself, Nicolas Maduro, has been involved in illicit
hold
drug
on.
trade.
We also have Vishnu Som with us. Vishnu, of course, the United States there taking responsibility for the strikes that have taken place in the dead of the night, and now it is the president, the leader of the nation of Venezuela, who has been captured.
Well, this is one of the most daring military operations that I've heard of. Effectively, the United States have gone into Caracas, the capital of Venezuela. They have captured President Maduro and his wife and flown them out of there. The attacks, the specific hits which were taking place on Venezuela in the Caracas region took place a couple of hours back. But since then, they've deployed ground soldiers. They have taken custody of the Venezuelan president and his wife and flown them out. I'm just going to go through the statement of the US president before we can perhaps discuss the reasons why America says it's done this. So Trump has tweeted, not tweeted, on his social media platform, he said the US has successfully carried out large-scale strikes against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolas Maduro, who's been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. The operation was done in conjunction with US law enforcement. Details will follow. There will be a news conference at 11 a.m. at Mar-a-Lago. Thanks for your attention to this matter. As simple as that. Now, there's been this back and forth between the United States and Venezuela for an extended period of time. America has been trying to block oil tankers from Venezuela, which is an oil-rich country. In terms of some of the official reasons that the US has stated so far on their angst or their concerns on Venezuela, it is that the Maduro regime floods the US with deadly drugs, such as fentanyl, which is a cause of major concern in the United States. The Venezuelan government supports gangs like the Tren de Aragua, which is a violent Venezuelan gang which is involved in human trafficking, among other reasons, and is also perhaps involved in the mass migration of Venezuelan migrants to the United States. That's something that the US completely opposes. And Venezuela, America says, harbors the cartel de los Soles, which is embedded in the government. So that's another drug cartel. But there are other broader regions as well. A greater American presence in Venezuela would ensure that they've got access to the world's largest some of the world's largest oil reserves, which are in Venezuela. It's a broader statement of US policy as well at this juncture. It sends very strong statements to countries like Iran as well.
Right, and the backing that Venezuela has and the closeness that it has with other countries is also an issue that the United States president has been having.
Well, I'm not sure about the support, that specific support, other than the support from Iran, which Venezuela has really had. But Maduro has been fighting a losing battle. In fact, there's a soundbite of Donald Trump where he was less than flattering when asked by a journalist in the last couple of days about what more Venezuela needed to do. Apparently, Maduro had reached out to the United States, was trying to get some sort of resolution happening over there. But apparently Trump was just not interested. There was a huge presence of US Navy ships. This is, of course, very much their backyard off the coast of Venezuela. The Venezuelan military is not something which would at all have been adept at taking on an American ground invasion. That's what's taken place. This is a ground invasion in a sense, and one where they hit targets in Caracas. Their soldiers went in, captured Maduro and his wife, and then flown him out. It's one of the most it's an incredible commando mission, to say the least, a special forces operation. But it's been done and it's dusted, and there'll be a press conference where they're going to be reporting this. America had threatened something like this, and they've now gone ahead and done it.
Right. For weeks now, Donald Trump has been, in fact, threatening of these strikes. And finally, these strikes, have been heard since, 2 o'clock in the morning local time. Let's just get your reactions also when we talk about reactions coming in, particularly from Iran. In fact, Iran, an ally of Venezuela, has condemned the strikes and has called it a blatant violation of its national sovereignty and territorial integrity. The Iranian Foreign Ministry has called on the United Nations Security Council to act to halt the unlawful aggression and to hold those responsible accountable. Vishnu, of course, this is something that Donald Trump, like we were discussing, has been warning of. While it is the, president who's gone on to say this is an attempt only to overthrow him and that he's denied all kind of allegations against him, including him heading the drug cartel in Venezuela.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, there are 2 or 3 official reasons which have been stated. But I think the point that you were raising about Iran is actually quite important, because just in the last couple of days, the United States has said, Trump has said that they are locked and loaded with regard to Iran. And if there are any potential continued attacks against, women and others in Iran, because there are large-scale protests, then America will not hesitate to take military action. Iran is a close partner of Venezuela. Venezuela has now been invaded. Their president has been taken into custody of the United States with his wife and flown out of that country. So whatever Iran really says at this stage, the fact of the matter is that this is a surgical operation done by America, a special forces operation. Imagine the intelligence that they would have had. They would have been monitoring Maduro and his movements on a 24-hour basis. We'll never get to know exactly how they did it. This is stuff that'll end up being in movies and films in the future. But whether there was an inside hand, somebody who was closely monitoring Maduro, who was able to track his movements and give American forces access to Maduro, or whether they actually went in and forced entry and got hold of him and flew him out, that's something that we don't know at this stage. But just a couple of hours after hitting Venezuela with air attacks, with attack helicopters as well, in port areas and in other areas, we've got footage of that up on screen. We've got this message, and there was some footage of Chinook helicopters, which are transport helicopters of the United States, flying overhead Caracas. So Maduro has been captured and taken to the United States. It's quite unbelievable, the speed and the pace at which this has happened.
Vishnu, when was the last time that the United States, threatened of attacks and carried out with those attacks in this close proximity that it's happened?
Well, there have been many threats that the United States has carried out, and the most recent one would be their decision to hit Iran along with Israel when it appeared that Iran was working towards a solution, a military solution against Israel a couple of months back, which may have seen a large-scale missile exchange, perhaps the possible use or development of a nuclear option. I'm not sure whether they ever actually had nuclear weapons, but clearly America wanted to destroy their ability to make nuclear weapons, which is why they went and hit Iran. That was done in fairly short notice from a military standpoint.
Right, of course. Now, Venezuela, of course, they're saying that this is an attempt only to steal its oil and its minerals, and that is why these strikes have been carried out.
Yeah, that's right. Now, Venezuela has got one of the largest supplies of oil in the world. Whether these strikes will be limited to what the US has done, targeting Maduro, or whether this is, a stage one of a process which will result in an America-led, shift, an America-led operation to get a new regime in place in Venezuela is what we're going to have to see. And there are those who say that Trump's got his eyes on Venezuelan oil. Whether or not that is actually something that takes place, we're going to have to see. But yes, Venezuela does have one of the largest reserves of oil, a lot of it undeveloped, anywhere in the world. And access to that is what critics of Trump say that this is essentially all about. Trump, of course, says, no, that's not the case. The US says that the Maduro regime floods the US with deadly drugs. They've recently, off the coast of Florida, for example, taken out boats or semi-submersible vessels with, allegedly carrying drugs into the United States. They've blown them up and killed those on board. So America has been on the offensive against Venezuela, but this is quite clearly a huge mission where you physically take the president of Venezuela into captivity in a special operations in a special operation lasting just a couple of hours.